just saying, I'm trying to hear you. Don't touch me, bro.
You're free to go.
Man, I'm just saying, bro.
You're free to go.
But I'm telling you, bro.
Leave.
You're not trying to hear me, bro. You're not.
You're over talking me. You need to leave.
How am I trying? How am I over?
You don't want to listen. I'll put you in handcuffs and take you to jail.
Look, bro.
Leave.
Look.
You can walk over there. You can walk over there. I don't care where you go.
Look.
But you're free to leave. I'm done talking to you.
I don't give a fuck what you doing. Nigga, get on.
You can leave.
Get on. The fuck? Nigga, I'm telling you, bro, like, quit all you being disrespectful, bro. The moment you got out, where's your bag? Where's your little body cam?
I don't have a body
All
cam.
right, nigga, the moment you got out, you been disrespectful.
Take that badge off. I'll beat your ass. On my mama, I will beat your ass.
Bro, man, I respected you the whole time, bro. Don't say I did, bro. Quit playing with me, bro. Real talking. Take that badge off. Beat your ass on my mama. On my mama, I will beat your ass.
Those words, out in the open, directed at a uniformed Arkansas State Trooper. Not whispered, not implied, loud, clear, and with absolute conviction. And the Trooper? He doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't blink. He just looks at this guy and says 2 words. You're done. Right now. Before we go any further, if you've ever watched a traffic stop spiral completely out of control and wondered how it got there, you need to stay locked in for the next 50 minutes. Because this is a masterclass in how fast a routine stop can detonate and what happens when a man has zero situational awareness and maximum ego. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now. I put out breakdowns like this regularly, and if you bail after the hook, you're gonna miss the part that makes this whole thing make sense. Thousands of people are already here watching this. Don't be the one who left before the best part. Subscribe, stay in. Now let's back all the way up. Because this doesn't start with threats, it starts with speed. Pure, reckless, dangerous speed. We're on the North Service Road in Arkansas. Trooper Jacob Byrd is running patrol. He clocks a vehicle absolutely flying down a 4-5 mile per hour zone. We're not talking 10 over. We're not talking 20 over. We're talking the kind of speed that turns a fender bender into a funeral. Over 100 miles an hour. On a service road, in traffic, think about that for a second. A service road isn't a highway. These are roads where people are pulling in and out of driveways, parking lots, gas stations. People are making left turns. Kids cross. People don't expect someone doing highway speeds in a surface street zone. But that's exactly what Trooper Byrd is watching unfold right in front of him. And it gets worse. Before Byrd even gets the vehicle stopped, he watches this driver attempt to pass on the service road in a no-passing zone and nearly clip a Honda CR-V in the process. We're talking inches. The kind of inches that separate a traffic stop from a multi-car fatality investigation. Byrd lights him up and gives chase. And here's something people don't think about. When Byrd says he was doing over 100 trying to catch this guy, that means he had to push his cruiser past 100 miles per hour just to close the distance. That's how fast this vehicle was moving through what should have been slow, cautious traffic. Now they're stopped. Cruiser behind the vehicle, blue lights still cycling. Byrd steps out. And the moment he approaches the driver's window, something already feels slightly off. Watch this. The driver, we'll call him Malik, because that's the name he gives, is already talking before Byrd even finishes his sentence. He's not hostile yet, but he's not cooperative either. He's in that middle zone, defensive, evasive, and distracted. Byrd lays it out calmly and completely. The pass in the no-passing zone, almost hitting the Honda CR-V. The merger violation, and then the speed over 100 inches, a 45. Malik pushes back immediately, claims he was doing 80. Now, I want you to think about that response for a moment. His defense isn't, I wasn't speeding. His defense is, I was only doing 80 in a 4-5 mile per hour zone. That's not a defense. That's a confession with a number attached. But Byrd doesn't get baited. He doesn't argue the number. He simply says, you weren't doing 80, I was doing over 100 trying to catch you. I've got radar, clean, factual, undeniable. Then Byrd asks for the driver's license. And here's where the first real flag goes up. Malik says he doesn't have one. No driver's license. Driving over 100 miles an hour in a 45 zone? In someone else's car? That's already 3 separate problems stacking on top of each other before we've even gotten past the first minute of this stop. Byrd pivots without missing a beat. "Let me see your ID." And then Malik says something that changes the entire tone of the stop. He mentions a hospital, his sister, an emergency. Now let me be honest with you here. That context matters. It genuinely does. If someone you love is in a medical emergency, panic sets in. Judgment goes out the window. I've seen it happen, and I've heard about it happening to people I know. The brain stops calculating risk and just starts moving toward the person you're afraid of losing. But here's the thing Byrd says next, and I want you to really hear it. What is it going to do? You're still going to be sitting in the waiting room. That's not cold, that's true. And somewhere underneath all the defensiveness, Malik knows it because he pauses and then quietly says, "You right." That moment right there, that was the crossroads. That was the moment where this whole stop could have gone a completely different direction. Malik acknowledged the truth. The situation was de-escalating, but that doesn't last long. Something's about to shift, and when it does fast. Byrd asks for the keys to the vehicle. Standard practice. When someone has been driving recklessly at triple the speed limit in a car that isn't theirs, with no license, you secure the situation. You don't leave the engine running. Malik resists. "I ain't gonna go nowhere, man." Byrd doesn't debate it. "I didn't say you were." Simple, precise, in control. He radios in his position, North Service Road at the old Harley-Davidson dealership. He's on camera. He's documenting everything methodically. This is what experience looks like. And then Malik gets out of the car. Nobody told him to. Byrd didn't ask him to. He just opens the door and steps out. Now, this is a critical moment in any traffic stop. When a driver exits their vehicle without being instructed to, it immediately raises the alert level. Officers are trained to watch for this because it can mean a lot of different things, some of them dangerous. Byrd responds quickly but calmly. He directs Malik to the back of the cruiser and has him lean against the bumper, getting him away from the vehicle, getting him in a controlled position, getting eyes on him. At this point, the stop is escalating in complexity, but it's still manageable. Byrd is running the scene. Malik is agitated, but not yet explosive. And then Byrd starts asking about the car. Whose vehicle is it? A friend named Josh, Malik says. He borrowed it. He was trying to get back to his friend so they could both go to the hospital. All right, a borrowed car. No driver's license, no seatbelt. And now we need to find out what else is in this vehicle. Here's a question for everyone watching right now, and I want to see your answer in the comments. At this point in the stop, before anything else has happened, what would you do if you were the trooper? Hold that thought, because the next few minutes are about to complicate this situation in a direction nobody was expecting. Byrd does a sweep of the interior, and he finds something. An open container of alcohol, inside the vehicle, within reach of the driver's seat. Now Malik's explanation is creative. He claims it was warm, like it had been sitting there, like it wasn't his, like someone else left it. Byrd doesn't buy it. And he explains exactly why calmly, patiently, the way you'd explain something to someone who genuinely might not understand the law. Whether it's hot or cold, you can't have an open container of alcohol within reach while you're driving. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does, man. Another moment of compliance. Another moment where Malik seems to lower his guard and accept the reality of the situation. For a few minutes here, the conversation actually breathes. Byrd walks Malik through the reckless driving in more detail, talks about rush hour traffic, inattentive drivers, the physics of a crash at 90 miles an hour. He's not lecturing, he's explaining consequences. And Malik? He's listening, he's nodding. He says, I take full accountability for it. This is where I actually have to give Malik credit. At this stage of the stop, he's doing the right thing. He's not doubling down on the lie. He's not fabricating some elaborate story. He's saying, yeah, I was speeding. I was trying to get somewhere. That was on me. That kind of acknowledgement at a traffic stop is rare, and it matters. It signals that on some level, the person understands they crossed a line. But understanding it and accepting the consequences of it, those are two very different things. And we're about to find out which one Malik actually believes in, because the tow truck is coming. And when Malik hears that, everything changes. This is the moment. Byrd finishes writing the citations, multiple violations stacking up, no license, no seatbelt, reckless driving, speed, open container of alcohol. Each one is its own legal problem. Together, they paint a picture of someone who wasn't just running a yellow light, someone who was operating a motor vehicle in a manner that could have killed people on that road. And then Byrd delivers the news. The vehicle is being towed. Policy, not personal. Not punishment beyond the citations. Policy. He explains it plainly. When someone has no license suspended or otherwise, the vehicle gets towed. Period. Every single person. No exceptions. Because if that person gets back in that car and drives, and they cause an accident, and there's no license on record, everyone's liability becomes a nightmare. Malik does not take this well. He starts asking about his ride, about getting to the hospital, about his sister. He's looping back to the emotional anchor, the baby coming, the family waiting, the urgency that started all of this. And honestly, I get it. I do. Being stranded on a road in a city you're not from, with no car, trying to get to a hospital that's a genuinely rough situation. But here's what Malik isn't processing in this moment. The situation he's in right now is entirely the product of the choices he made 30 minutes ago. The speed, the reckless passing, the no license, the open container. All of it, every single variable was introduced by him. Byrd actually tries to help. He suggests the hospital is nearby. He tells Malik that someone can come get the car from the tow lot. He offers workable solutions within the constraints of what policy allows. But Malik isn't hearing solutions anymore. He's hearing walls. And when people start hearing walls, sometimes they stop thinking and start reacting. Pay attention to this next section, because this is where the psychology of this stop becomes genuinely fascinating and genuinely dangerous. The frustration starts bleeding through. Malik's language shifts. He's not saying yes sir anymore. He's not nodding along. The composure he showed earlier, the accountability, the acknowledgement, it starts to crack under the pressure of the tow. And then comes the moment that defines this entire stop. Malik is told he's free to go. He can walk. He can call someone. The interaction is over. But he doesn't leave. This is something that happens more often than people realize. The stop is concluded. The tickets are written. The person is legally free to walk away. And yet, they stay. They linger. They want the last word. They want the officer to feel something, to acknowledge their frustration, to respond to the injustice they believe they're experiencing. Byrd tells him again, "You're free to go." Malik keeps talking. He starts accusing Byrd of being disrespectful, starts saying Byrd wasn't listening. And then right here, he brings up the body camera. "You ain't even got on no body cam. What the hell, man?" Now, this is interesting, because body camera policy varies by department. Arkansas State Police, at the time of this footage, use dash cameras in their vehicles rather than body-worn cameras on every trooper. Malik doesn't know this. He assumes that no body cam equals no accountability, and that assumption triggers something in him. He believes in this moment that he has leverage. He doesn't. The dash camera in Byrd's cruiser has been running this entire time. Every word, every movement, every exchange. But Malik doesn't know that yet. And in that gap of misunderstanding, his confidence inflates to a dangerous level. You ain't got no body cam, no nothing. How you think that's gonna play out in court? He actually starts thinking out loud about his legal strategy. He's calculating. He believes he's identified a weakness. And that belief, that mistaken, dangerous belief, is about to push him somewhere he cannot come back from. Something just shifted. This is the part that the title of this video is about. This is the moment. Malik has been told multiple times that he's free to leave. Byrd has remained steady throughout this entire interaction. Professional, measured, patient in a way that most people would not be after being subjected to this level of sustained aggression. And then Malik says it. "Take that badge off, I'll beat your ass. On my mama, I will beat your ass." There it is. Not implied, not metaphorical. A direct, explicit threat of physical violence against a law enforcement officer, on camera, in front of witnesses, on a public road. I want to pause here for a second and ask everyone watching, what do you think should happen next? I want genuine responses in the comments, because this is one of those moments where people land in very different places. Some of you think the handcuffs should have gone on the second that sentence left his mouth. Others might say give him one more chance to walk away. Drop your take below. I want to see where this audience lands. Now, here's what actually makes Trooper Byrd remarkable in this moment. He doesn't escalate. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't grab Malik. He doesn't respond to the threat with a counter threat. He simply says, "You're done." And then he waits. He's giving Malik one final opportunity to choose correctly, to hear what he just said out loud, to feel the weight of it, to make a decision. Malik doesn't make the right decision. He keeps going. Louder, more profanity, more threats. Calls Byrd names I won't repeat here. Starts talking about what he'll do when Byrd doesn't have his badge. Keeps circling, keeps escalating, keeps probing for a reaction. And Byrd just waits him out. But there's a line. And when Malik crosses it physically, when the confrontation stops being verbal and becomes something that could turn dangerous for everyone on that scene, that's when Byrd moves. And when he moves with precision, no hesitation, no theatrics, just control. The handcuffs come out, and this is where it gets loud. Malik does not go quietly. The arrest is physical. There's resistance. There's yelling, profanity, appeals to some imagined injustice. And through all of it, Byrd and the other officer on scene maintain control of the situation without ever losing their composure. Malik keeps repeating that he was trying to leave, that he said he was going, that he didn't do anything wrong. But here's the thing, and this is one of the most important details of this entire video, so I need you to really hear this. Being told you're free to go does not mean you can stand there for 10 more minutes making threats and then claim you are leaving when the cuffs come out. Free to go is not a pause button. It's not a platform for a closing argument. It's not an invitation to escalate until you've said everything you want to say. Free to go means leave. Malik was given that chance multiple times. He made his choice. As he's being placed in custody, the commentary continues. He argues about the handcuffs being too tight. He argues about the arrest itself. He starts lecturing the other officer, a trainee, about not following this guy because he'll get your ass beat. He starts philosophizing about body cameras and court proceedings and his own intelligence. "I'm a lot smarter than what you think I look like." And somewhere in that statement, there's actually something real. Because the Malik who acknowledged the speeding, the Malik who said, "You right," when Byrd explained the futility of racing to a hospital, the Malik who took full accountability early in this stop, that person did show intelligence. But intelligence and decision-making are not the same thing. And right now, the decision-making has completely taken over. He's in handcuffs, on a public road, on camera, and he is still talking. Let me step back for a moment and talk about what we're actually watching here, because I think this case is genuinely worth examining on a psychological level. There's a concept called escalation commitment. It's the psychological phenomenon where someone continues down a path even when it's clearly going wrong, because they've already invested so much in that direction that backing down feels like losing, like failure, like weakness. Watch Malik's progression through this stop, and you'll see it playing out in real time. First investment, the speed. He was going over 100. He knew it. He got stopped. That created a situation he needed to manage. Second investment, pushing back on the speed claim. Once he said 80, he had to defend that number, even though it didn't matter. Third investment, the emotional justification. His sister, the baby, the hospital. Once he introduced that as the reason, backing down from his frustration felt like abandoning the reason itself. Fourth investment, the tow. Once the car was going to be towed and he publicly resisted it, accepting the outcome felt like public submission. Fifth investment, the body camera argument. Once he convinced himself he had leverage that no body cam meant no accountability, he was committed to using that perceived leverage. Sixth and final investment, the threat. Once those words left his mouth, every second he remained on scene without being arrested felt like validation, proof that he had power. And every second he was asked to simply leave felt like the officer was scared of him. He escalated himself into a corner, step by step, decision by decision, and couldn't find a way out that didn't feel like losing. That's not a character flaw unique to Malik. That's a human pattern. Most of us have felt it in smaller stakes, situations, arguments, negotiations, conversations, where we've said something we can't take back, and we start digging the hole deeper rather than climbing out of it. The difference here is the stakes. The difference here is who he was escalating against. And the difference here is that escalation commitment on a public road with a law enforcement officer has real and immediate legal consequences. Now, do you think Malik understood those consequences in the moment? Or was he too deep in the pattern to see them? Tell me in the comments. This is genuinely a discussion worth having. Let's talk about Trooper Byrd for a minute, because his performance in this stop is something worth analyzing too. What you're watching in this footage is not a trooper who's trying to win an argument. It's not a trooper trying to assert dominance. It's not a trooper who enjoys the conflict. What you're watching is a professional who has internalized a very specific philosophy: control yourself, control the scene. Every time Malik escalates, Byrd de-escalates. Not by capitulating, not by giving in on the citations or the tow, but by maintaining a vocal tone and a physical presence that refuses to match the chaos being thrown at him. When Malik gets louder, Byrd gets quieter. When Malik gets more aggressive in his language, Byrd gets more precise. When Malik starts circling with threats, Byrd gives him clean, direct warnings, and then waits. That kind of discipline is incredibly difficult to maintain under sustained verbal aggression. Most people, even trained professionals, start to mirror the emotional state of the person they're interacting with. It's called emotional contagion, and it's one of the biggest challenges in high conflict situations. Byrd doesn't mirror, and that discipline, that refusal to be emotionally hijacked, is actually what keeps this entire situation from going much further south than it already does. There's also something worth noting about how Byrd explained the tow policy. He didn't just say, "Your car's getting towed, deal with it." He walked through the reasoning. He gave an example about a crash scenario. He explained liability. He gave Malik information rather than just enforcement. That approach matters, not because it changed the outcome in this case, but because it treats the person being cited as someone capable of understanding consequences rather than just someone to be processed. That's what a professional looks like. Now let's come back to the body camera argument, because Malik leans on this hard in the back half of this stop, and I think it's worth addressing directly. His logic goes something like this: no body camera on the trooper means no footage of the arrest. No footage means no proof of what happened. No proof means any charges won't stick in court. Therefore, freedom. Every single step of that logic is wrong. First, Arkansas State Police, as an agency, used vehicle-mounted dash cameras. Byrd's cruiser had a camera. It was running. The entire stop from approach to arrest is on video. Second, even if there was zero camera footage, there were witnesses. Other officers were on scene. Documentation was filed at the scene. Dispatch records were running. Radar data was logged. Citations were issued. A tow truck was called. There is a substantial paper and data trail from this stop even without a single second of video. Third, the verbal threats alone, witnessed by multiple officers and documented in real time, are sufficient for criminal charges. You don't need body camera footage to charge someone with threatening a law enforcement officer. The standard isn't, "We have video." The standard is, "Did it happen?" And in this case, there is no question. Malik built an entire alternate reality in his head based on a misunderstanding of how evidence and law enforcement accountability actually works. And then he made consequential decisions inside that alternate reality. That's one of the most dangerous things that can happen in a high-stakes interaction. Not dishonesty, not aggression, confident incorrectness. Believing something is true with such conviction that you act on it, and being completely wrong. This is worth sitting with for a minute, because it's a lesson that extends way beyond this traffic stop. How many times have any of us made a decision based on what we were certain was true and found out later that the foundation we were standing on wasn't solid? The difference here is that Malik's certainty played out on a public road in real time, with a camera rolling, and the consequences were immediate. If you've ever been in a situation where you were absolutely sure you were right and you were wrong, let me know in the comments, because I think more people relate to this dynamic than we'd like to admit. I want to go back to something that I think gets lost in the chaos of the back half of this video: the sister, the baby. Malik mentioned early in the stop that he was trying to get to a hospital because his sister was having a baby. His youngest sister. He was going to be an uncle for the first time with her. And there's a moment, just a brief one, where Byrd actually softens on this. He asks about the baby. "It's a girl," Malik says. They have a small exchange about it. Byrd asks if Malik is excited about being an uncle. The whole thing lasts maybe 30 seconds, but in that 30 seconds, you see two human beings having a real conversation. That moment is real. That connection is real. And then the toe comes up and all of it evaporates. I don't think Malik is a bad person. I think he was scared. Scared about his sister, scared about being stranded, scared about the citations stacking up, and fear in high-pressure situations doesn't always come out as fear. Sometimes it comes out as anger. Sometimes it comes out as aggression. Sometimes it comes out as threats you don't fully mean but can't take back once they're in the air. That doesn't excuse what he said. Those words, "Take that badge off, I'll beat your ass." Those are words that have consequences in the real world, regardless of what emotional state produced them. But understanding where they came from is different from excusing them. And I think it's worth understanding, because the next time any of us are in a high-pressure situation, it's worth remembering that the fear response that wanted to come out as anger in us might come out differently, and the consequences of letting it out that way might outlast the moment that produced it. Let's look at what Malik is actually walking away from this stop facing, because I don't think the full weight of it hits until you see the list. Reckless driving. That's not a speeding ticket. That's a criminal traffic offense in Arkansas. Driving over 100 miles per hour in a 4 or 5 mile per hour zone. The speed differential alone puts this in a category that goes beyond standard speeding fines. Operating a motor vehicle without a driver's license. No seatbelt. Open container of alcohol within reach of the driver. Unsafe passing in a no-passing zone with near contact with another vehicle. And then, from the back half of the stop, threatening a law enforcement officer. That's not a traffic citation, that is a criminal charge in Arkansas. It carries potential jail time. The combined exposure from this stop is substantial. We're not talking a few $100s in fines and a court date. We're talking multiple appearances, potential criminal record, potential jail time on the threat charge, and civil liability questions depending on what happened with the vehicle. And all of it, every single charge was avoidable. The speeding wasn't avoidable once he was already going 100, sure. But every single thing that happened after Byrd approached that window, every escalation, every refusal, every threat, all of it was a choice. Choices have momentum, and sometimes that momentum carries you somewhere you never intended to go. There's one more detail I want to highlight before we get to the close of this breakdown, and it's easy to miss if you're focused on the main exchange. At some point during the back half of this stop, Malik identifies that there's a trainee officer on scene, and he starts directing commentary at that trainee. Don't follow this guy. He's going to lead you wrong. He's going to get your ass beat. There's something almost painful about this moment, because in some twisted way, Malik is trying to do the trainee a favor, trying to pass along what he believes is wisdom about how not to conduct a stop. But here is the reality that Malik cannot see from where he's standing. The trainee is watching a masterclass in professional law enforcement. Every calm response to provocation, every patient explanation of policy, every precise movement. Once the situation required physical intervention, the trainee is absorbing all of it. The lesson the trainee is learning in this moment is not, "My supervisor makes bad calls." The lesson is, here is how you maintain control when someone is trying to take it from you. Here is how you honor policy while treating a person with dignity. Here is how you escalate only when you have to, and when you do, you escalate decisively. That's not a bad lesson. That's actually a really important one. So where does this leave us? A young man drives over 100 miles an hour through a service road. He's scared about his family. He gets stopped by a trooper who, by almost every measure, conducts this stop with remarkable professionalism. The young man acknowledges his fault early on. He shows flashes of self-awareness. He has a human moment about his sister and the baby coming. And then in the space of a few minutes, he throws all of that away. He decides the no body camera thing gives him leverage that it doesn't actually give him. He refuses to leave when he's told he's free to go. He makes explicit threats of physical violence on camera, and he ends up in handcuffs, facing charges he wouldn't be facing if he had just walked away when given the chance. Now here's the question I want to leave you with, and I mean this as a genuine question, not a rhetorical one. Do you think Malik truly believed he was being disrespected throughout this stop? Or do you think on some level he knew he had pushed past a line and couldn't figure out how to step back? Because there's a difference. And I think where you land on that question says something interesting about how you interpret human behavior in high-pressure moments. Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. If you've made it this far genuinely, thank you. This is the kind of case that deserves more than a surface-level watch. The speeding, the citations, the threats, those are the events. But underneath those events is a story about choices, momentum, fear, ego, and the gap between knowing something is wrong and being able to stop yourself from doing it anyway. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells the algorithm that this kind of content is worth showing to people who haven't found the channel yet. And if you're not subscribed yet, listen, you made it through nearly an hour of this breakdown. That means something. You're not just here for the highlights. You're here for the full picture. Subscribe, because the next case I'm breaking down involves a stop that starts almost identically to this one. Same attitude, same escalation pattern, but ends in a way that is completely, shockingly different. You don't want to come back and find out you missed it. Arkansas troopers don't play. And situations like this one don't always end with just handcuffs. Stay locked in. I'll see you in the next one.